Welcome to our In Focus discussion tonight on the Salt Lake City Classroom Chronicles. Kicking off our conversation tonight is one of our very own ABC4's investigative reporter Jason Nguyen, who is behind this new series. Jason, let's start with where the idea for the Salt Lake City Classroom Chronicles came from. What prompted you to take the lead on this series?
Well, thanks for having me, Rosie. What really prompted us is to talk about the kids. We've talked about how students have reacted to last year's school year and how they're reacting to this year's school year. And one of the things that I took away from in previous markets, and one of my colleagues from another market took on a series in Portland, Oregon, where they looked inside of a classroom. So I kept pitching this series over and over and over again until finally a district bit and Salt Lake City School District decided, yeah, this was an important series to take a look at not only what the students are going through, but what the teachers are going through in the classrooms, what the principals are going through. You know, you've got custodians, you've got cafeteria workers. I mean, there's a lot of people that put a lot of time into these kids' education, and it's a lot more that people need to know about, especially during the pandemic.
And we know it takes a village to raise children. Who are the people who are going to be featured in your reports?
Well, I mean, you just met two of them, the principals. We're also going to be talking to teachers. We're, a lot more teachers. So if you watch our first day of school coverage, we follow two teachers through their first day of school in the Classroom Chronicles. And you can get that all on abc4.com underneath the Classroom Chronicles tab. But a lot of the other people that we're going to look to talk to are the cafeteria workers. Right now there's a shortage of cafeteria workers in the Salt Lake City School District, and they're dealing with making sure that all of the kids' foods are bagged up, put in individual spots so that they can grab those, have those things easily to grab, and then go to their classroom to learn. So we want to show that process. I mean, that's an important thing. How the schools are disinfected. Each teacher disinfects during the classrooms. The custodians disinfect after school. There's a lot there. One of the schools that we follow have their own clinic. So we want to introduce those doctors and those nurses that are helping out the community and the students just to make sure that they stay in school.
There's so many perspectives on this. It'll be interesting to see where everybody is coming from and their contributions. Now, you and your team spent a lot of time at these schools. What have you seen so far?
Well, obviously masking is the big issue right now, especially with Salt Lake City going back to vote on the mask mandate on the 14th. That's an important date for the city. And what we saw while we were at the schools is a lot of kids wore the masks. They didn't seem to have issues with masks because at the end of the day, I think the kids just want to get back to class and they want to learn. And that's just the experience that we got while we were there. The kids, as you're seeing on your screen right now, one of the principals was handing out red and blue masks. I'm sure that's not for the BYU-Utah game, but, they handed those out because that's an important thing. And those kids, they got to choose. They got to pick what they wanted, and they were proud of it. And I think they're proud of going to the class, wearing their different masks, and it's also like an attire thing, so they get to talk about the cool things that they just did with their masks with their students. It's a good experience.
Jason, we have to wrap, but let's squeeze this question in. What's the overall goal of the project?
Well, the overall goal is to take a look inside the Salt Lake City school district for an entire year. We're going to cover the good, the bad. COVID's obviously a big issue. We're telling two sides of the city. We've got the west side and the east side, so you'll be able to tell two drastically different things that are going on within those schools, but they're both to educate our kids, and that's the most important part. So we'll be covering mental health. We'll be covering, there's just a laundry list. I don't want to give it all away just now because we've got a whole year.
Well, you'll have to tune in over the next school year. You've been hearing from ABC4's Jason Nguyen. And Jason, thanks for joining us tonight to talk about your series.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us for our second In Focus discussion tonight on the Salt Lake City Classroom Chronicles. Joining us now live in studio are the principals you met in the first installment of our series. Tracy Shostrom, principal of Mary W. Jackson Elementary, and Janelle Rodriguez, principal of Liberty Elementary. Tracy and Janelle, thank you so much for both being here tonight. We will start our conversation with Janelle. Let's rewind back to spring 2020 when the COVID-19 pandemic first hit Utah. What was going through your mind when you realized that schools in Utah would be shut down and there would be a need to move classes remotely online?
Yeah, at first there was a lot of uncertainty as far as what would be expected of teachers and schools. But as pieces of information were shared out, such as technology, what students would be doing, we quickly regrouped. Teachers spent weekend getting lessons prepared, coming in, handing out packets. I very vividly remember it was St. Patrick's Day and we had a dress up in your green outfit day so we could make sure have some spirit going on. And then we just processed as pieces came in. We stayed calm, cool, collected, and then we didn't what if, and that was the most important part. We stayed true to what we knew as facts and what we were processing. And then every step of the way, because this information was changing hourly sometimes, we just worked through that and we made sure our students had access. Every student was handed out a laptop or delivered one to their homes, and then we made sure they were able to connect with their teacher, had the work to do at home. So we just really worked hard to make sure kids had access.
It really was something you just had to take a day at a time. Tracy, as principals, what were some of the hardest parts to navigate during the last year and a half?
So I would say technology definitely was a challenge. We are an Apple school, so fortunately all of our students have access to iPads. It was just a matter of getting those iPads to the students in a safe manner. So we had to have like a drive-through day where kids would drive up and we'd quickly hand them the iPad and they would bring it home. And then once they had it, we needed to make certain that they had internet. So we had to also distribute hotspots and make sure that it all worked. And teachers needed to learn how to provide instruction over the iPad. So they had to develop Canvas pages. They had to have a slew of training on how to teach kids virtually. It was brand new for them. So that was challenging and an exciting challenge. And then finally, participation. So students, they had iPads, but they didn't always engage or log on for learning. So we needed to be strategic in getting kids to actually jump on the iPad and jump in a math lesson. So lots of positive reinforcement, lots of home visits and encouragement, and lots of love, and we were able to get kids to engage in learning.
We can relate to that. We use a lot of Zoom here during the pandemic here at ABC4, and it's a lot of troubleshooting audio, troubleshooting video, trying to get stuff to record, so we feel you on that. Tracy, stay with me. Everyone working in education went through a lot during the pandemic, particularly our wonderful teachers. How are you handling teacher morale, mental health, and self-care?
So I have the philosophy I have to put my oxygen mask on first. So certainly checked in with myself to make sure I was solid and grounded. Really did a lot of work in exercising and mindfulness and did some training on life coaching and recovery coaching so I could be that person for my staff. And then as I kick off faculty meetings, I always try to build morale by doing an inspirational reading. A lot of Brene Brown this year, and that seems to help. And being fully present for my staff, really listening to how they feel and what they need and trying to support them. And then also, as we team build and as we come together, trying to find nurturing activities that are going to ground them and improve their mental health. So for example, one day, we all went cross-country skiing in the mountains. We went up Big Cottonwood, we connected to nature. And we also connected with each other. So meaningful. It just made a huge difference with our morale. And then at the end of the school year, we had professional development days. And while we did do some learning, we also came together and we worked in our garden. We spent 3 hours just digging in our garden. And that was highly therapeutic as well. And then finally, for individual teachers that need extra assistance, we do have EAP, so we can provide them a list of therapists that can help them for free and guide them in a direction where they feel like they're in a healthy place to really teach, and they can bring that health into the classroom, because kids will pick up on my mental health, on teacher mental health, on our calmness, on our levels of stress, and on our joy. And so it's so imperative that we take care of ourselves first, so we can take care of our kids.
I mean, I think that mental health is applicable in every industry and aspect, not just education, but we're seeing that right in healthcare, even in journalism. No matter what you work in or what your background is, like, mental health should always be a priority.
Definitely.
Janelle, we have about a minute left, but I'd like to squeeze this question in. How are your school supporting students during the pandemic? What are some of the strategies to help students get to where they would have been if the pandemic didn't happen?
Yeah, and besides the report earlier about our school counselor, our social worker, and our social worker intern, we also meet weekly to assess new students who are exhibiting behaviors that might indicate they need some support, but also focusing on classroom instruction. Teachers are working on Kagan strategies, which involves students doing activities within their classrooms, physical activity, moving around so that they can re-engage in the classroom. So just really trying to encompass the whole child and making sure that mental piece is there at all the different levels. Also, our teachers are teaching a Tier 1 social emotional Move This World this year, every day for about 8 minutes a day. So they're getting some ongoing support daily on top of all the other wraparound services we have.
Tracy and Janelle, hold that thought. We have to take a quick commercial break, but when we return, we'll resume our In Focus discussion tonight on the Salt Lake City Classroom Chronicles. Welcome to our third and final In Focus discussion tonight on the Salt Lake City Classroom Chronicles. Before the break, we were joined by Tracy Shostrom, principal of Mary W. Jackson Elementary, and Janelle Rodriguez, principal of Liberty Elementary. We pick up now right where we left off. Tracy, this was a question I asked Janelle in the last segment, and we'd like to hear from you as well. How is your school supporting students during the pandemic? What are some of the strategies to help students get to where they would have been if the pandemic didn't happen?
It's so wonderful that they are with us in person now. So we are taking that opportunity to really build those relationships and really hone in on what they need to learn. Some of our kids are a year behind. They didn't engage in the learning as much as they would when they're face-to-face. So we're doing a 6-week shot in the arm. We have a team of interventionists that are coming into the classroom daily and setting up stations to work on phonics and literacy skills with all students in the classroom. And we're assessing them at the beginning and at the end and determining where their needs lie, and then we will continue to target those needs until they get to the level that they need to be. We also have other multi-tiered systems of support. So with our Tier 1 instruction, we really have a rich instruction and curriculum for all kids. And then for kids that need a little extra guidance, we have some Tier 2 support where there's smaller groups. And then again, those interventionists do that one-on-one instruction. And then home visits are a priority. Unfortunately, attendance can be an issue in our neighborhood. The other day we had 67 kids absent because there is some illness on the rise. So we are getting out into the community and connecting with parents and kids and looking at the root cause, determining why they're not coming to school and how can we help them so they can make it to school and they can learn and they can feel safe and connect with teachers and have a productive experience at Mary Jackson.
Janelle, what are other areas of focus for your school this upcoming school year?
So like Tracy stated, we definitely do work on interventions, but we also have a unique opportunity at our school. We have a lot of assets, as Jason mentioned earlier. We have a community learning center, so that provides a lot of resources for our families. We have a medical, dental, vision clinic. We also have a food pantry, a lot of wraparound services for our students. So making sure families have access to those, especially since many of them are in need because of situations in COVID jobs and things like that. So making sure students have access to all those as well as their families.
There's just so much to take care of when it comes to our students and children. Tracy, what about you? What is your school also offering, or what are some of the other areas of focus for this upcoming school year?
We are in the second year of being a dual language immersion state model school. So we teach 50% of the day in Spanish, 50% of the day in English. This is a wonderful opportunity for our community because many of our students are native Spanish speakers, and it's also a wonderful opportunity for everyone. It's great to know that second language. You can eventually earn AP credit, and you can go on to have amazing careers when you know 2 languages. So huge focus on our DLI model. Then we also are working with a group called Welcoming Schools to ensure that our teachers have the tools to help all kids feel safe in our building. And there's especially a focus on the LGBTQ community. Over the years, we've had a lot of training on how to work with kids, but I feel like that's an area that we need more training. And we are really reaching out to all students and help them feel comfortable with being whoever they are and showing them that we love them and we accept them for whoever they are. And it's been a really exciting focus for us. And then finally, again, just continuing to build those relationships. That's a priority, and bringing the community together so that we can have a great school.
Final words, Janelle, as our viewers continue to follow the Salt Lake City Classroom Chronicles over the next school year, what would you like them to know or think about?
I just want to, I guess we accepted this role because we wanted to make sure that everyone got to see an inside of a school. And I know most families get to see the perspective of just when their kids come home, and there's much more to a school than that. And so it's a great opportunity for that lens and a wider lens and get support. I know we've all been supported through the year of COVID and the champions of behind it, but it's going to be fun for everybody to see what truly happens in a school and how amazing our teachers, our communities, and our students are, because they truly are rock stars and survivors, like I said earlier.
You all are rock stars and survivors. Tracy, I've got 30 seconds left. Any final words you want to squeeze in there?
We're just happy to be back together. We love our kids, and we appreciate all the support from the community, from Salt Lake City. We know it's going to be a great year. It's challenging, but we are rising to the challenge.
You've been hearing from Tracy Sjostrom, principal of Mary W. Jackson Elementary, and Janelle Rodriguez, principal of Liberty Elementary. Tracy and Janelle, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation tonight.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And don't forget, we'd love to hear from you about the show. We invite you to join our Facebook group by searching for ABC4 In Focus, or you can send us an email, infocus@abc4.com.